you ever been told to stop complaining? A complaint is usually considered negative, right? Maybe you've been around someone that complains a lot. Ugh. But maybe a complaint, if presented respectfully and based on a legitimate concern, can be a good thing. When Martin Luther nailed his list of complaints to a church door protesting practices of the Catholic Church, he had no idea it would ignite a movement that would influence religion, wars, and politics across Europe. Luther's complaints started an event called the Protestant Reformation, a major movement in the 1500s that questioned the Catholic Church's teachings and power. The movement, which protested some of the Church's actions, aimed to change or reform the Church itself. Let's find out whether Luther's complaints turned out to be a good thing as we investigate this world history mystery. How could a list of complaints change the course of world history? As we gather clues, we'll also look at Luther's complaints and his reasons for challenging the Catholic Church, explain the Diet of Worms and its outcome, check out other reformers, and analyze the impact of the Protestant Reformation across Europe. Are you ready, historians? Martin Luther was a German priest and scholar who became one of the most important figures in European history, all because he made some complaints to the Catholic Church. In 1517, Luther wrote a document known as the 95 Theses, which listed 95 changes he thought the Catholic Church should consider in its practices. Imagine having to pay money to be forgiven for your mistakes. That's what people faced in Martin Luther's time. That practice, called indulgences, was Luther's biggest complaint from the 95 on his list. Luther disagreed with the sale of indulgences, which included certificates people could buy to reduce punishment for their sins. The money from these indulgences went to fund church projects, like the Grand St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican City. Luther believed that this practice took advantage of people's faith, and that true forgiveness couldn't be bought with money. Other complaints on Luther's list further challenged the Catholic Church's teachings and power. But Luther wasn't trying to create a new Christian religion. He simply wanted the Church to change some of its practices. People who joined this movement became known as Protestants, and like Luther, they wanted to address what they saw wrong with the Church's teachings and practices. One of Luther's main beliefs was that salvation, or going to heaven, should come from faith alone, not from rituals or paying the Church. He also thought the Bible, not the Church, should be the ultimate authority for Christians. So, think back to what was going on in Europe at this time. What do you think motivated Luther to share his list of complaints? Many think Renaissance thoughts and the printing press contributed to Luther's actions. He was able to read the Bible for himself, leading him to question the Church's practices. Luther even believed that all people should be able to read the Bible themselves. So he advocated for education and literacy for everyone, not just priests. Luther's support actually led to some of the first state-supported schools in parts of Germany, encouraging people to study the Bible and make their own interpretations. But not everyone agreed with his ideas. After Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses, his ideas spread quickly, sparking debates across Europe. The Catholic Church saw Luther's complaints as a threat. So in 1521, they summoned him to an important meeting called the Diet of Worms. Now, just to be clear, a diet is a council meeting, and Worms is the name of a town in Germany. Can you think of anyone else summoned to appear before Catholic leaders for beliefs that the Church didn't agree with? Some of you may remember that Galileo was questioned about his beliefs on the solar system. So, how do you think this diet of worms will go for Martin Luther? At this meeting, Luther was asked to take back everything he had said and written against the church. Church leaders and the emperor pressured Luther to admit he was wrong. Think about it. How would you feel if you had to defend your beliefs in front of powerful leaders? Luther stood by his beliefs, famously saying, "Here I stand, I can do no other." He refused to take back his teachings, leading to his excommunication, which some may recall means he was officially banned from the church. Why do you think it was important for Luther to stay true to his beliefs, even with such strong consequences? After the Diet of Worms, Luther was declared an outlaw. However, Luther had many supporters who protected him and believed what he said was true. He continued to preach and write about his beliefs, inspiring more people to question the Catholic Church's authority. His teachings evolved into a new Christian religion called Lutheranism. Later, the Catholic Church held councils to respond to Luther's criticisms and make some changes, but Luther's influence continued to grow. Martin Luther was not alone in wanting to change the Catholic Church. Other reformers across Europe had ideas for making the church and society different. One of the most famous reformers was John Calvin, who taught about predestination, the belief that God has already chosen who will be saved. Calvin's ideas became the foundation of Calvinism, a branch of Protestantism that spread in Switzerland and parts of France and Scotland. Calvin also wanted church communities to be governed by local councils instead of the Catholic hierarchy. How do you think Catholic leaders felt about that? The Reformation led to the formation of several new denominations, which are branches of Christianity. We'll take a look at some in future lessons and learn more about other key figures of the Protestant Reformation in the lesson activity. As a result of these denominations, the Catholic Church lost some of its power as people joined these new Protestant churches. This shift in power led to conflict. Religious wars erupted across Europe as people fought over which branch of Christianity should have control. Do you think the Reformation may have led people to question other types of authority, like kings and nobles? The Reformation impacted society beyond just religion. Some groups, like peasants in Germany, saw the Reformation as a sign that they should demand social and political changes, leading to the Peasants' War in 1524. The Peasants' War was a revolt in Germany where peasants, inspired by the Reformation and with the belief that God was on their side, demanded fair treatment and freedom from nobles. The uprising grew, and some peasants even formed armies to fight for their rights. Though Luther supported spiritual reform, he did not support the peasants' revolt, which surprised many. Now think back to Luther's interaction with church leaders and the emperor at the Diet of Worms as you answer this. Why do you think Luther didn't support the peasants in their revolt? Pause here to respond. Even though some peasants cited Luther's complaints as inspiration for the uprising, Luther believed in maintaining social order, and he respected the authority of rulers. Luther also feared that the violence of the revolt would cause chaos and make the Reformation look bad. So, if Luther wanted peaceful reform, how might he have responded to people using his ideas to promote violence? Luther probably didn't like the peasants using his complaints about the church to justify violence. Like another religious leader centuries later who shared his name, Martin Luther believed in peaceful protests to get his point across. Martin Luther was a devoted Catholic monk who had no intentions of creating a new religion when he posted his 95 Theses on a church door. But the effects of his actions created Lutheranism and other new Protestant religions as it kicked off a reformation of the church. The Diet of Worms proved to be the end of Martin Luther's association with the Catholic Church, but it marked the beginning of other changes on the horizon. Other changes resulted from the event as people increasingly questioned authority regarding religious, political, and social structures. With all we learned today, it's safe to say that our world history mystery has been solved. Next time we take a closer look at the Catholic Church's response to Luther's criticism, as well as a new religion with a unique origin. Until then, keep exploring the past and shaping the future, and remember to always be clever.